2. Woo!
Welcome to the Authenticity Lab, a podcast where we celebrate connecting with our authentic selves. I'm Dr. Kelsey Miles. I'm a musician, a songwriter, and also a chemistry professor. Each week, I'll share a new story and break it down using none other than the scientific method. My hope with this podcast is that each episode will inspire you to live more boldly, lead a life of curiosity, and lean into what truly makes you who you are. Are you ready? Great. Let's dive into today's episode. We are talking about the hidden parts of yourself. The parts of yourself that you don't really want to look at. We all have these. These come in a variety of flavors, and I have many, many, many hidden things that I could share with you. Today, I'm talking about one in particular that I think a lot of you will resonate with. It's something that I felt a lot of shame within myself about, so much so that I didn't really want to accept that it was there. And I thought that if I really paid attention to it or really felt the shame or felt the emotion around it, I would only make it worse. And I'm talking about my view and my thoughts about my body. Yep. I think many of you can relate. This topic has spanned a lot of my lifetime. I've felt shame for the way that I've looked, the way that I've treated myself. Maybe overeating has been a big one for me. And I would use excuses like I was traveling and on tour and I had late night gigs. And so, of course, I had to stop at Quick Trip and grab a slice of pizza. Of course, I didn't have time in the morning to work out. I was tired. And in a way, all of those excuses, which I thought were actually helping me feel better, were actually keeping me from actually feeling the feeling of shame. So in a way, all the excuses I made were keeping me from healing. I thought I was doing the right thing by leaning into something that was a little more positive. We think that if we think about the bad feeling, it's only going to get worse. And by the end of today's episode, I hope I inspire you to open up one of those boxes of hidden truths that you had within and inspire you to open it up and know that it actually gets a lot easier when you work through your problem, not trying to find excuses around it. This topic of hidden truths is captured in my song, Shadow. This is the second song on my album, I Am. And I'd love to read you a few of the lyrics, and I'll play you part of the song. Talking about excuses, I hit that right in the first verse. This is what I sing. Don't ignore the secrets you keep, 'cause maybe someday you will see. Every promise is another lie. You wanted to believe this time.
Don't ignore the secrets you keep, 'cause maybe someday you will see. Every promise is another lie. You wanted to believe this time.
And the longer I went making excuses about my body and how I wasn't taking care of it and eating healthy and working out, the harder it became to make it okay that it would be fine. In a way, I held myself back by not looking at that part that I felt shame about. Let's listen to the lyrics in the second verse for Shadow. The lyrics say, I can see the shame in your eyes, and it gets harder every time to fake perfection when you hide the person you despise inside. This is really me calling to myself, looking in the mirror and noticing I've got the shame behind my eyes. And that with time, it gets harder and harder to fake that you're doing okay.
I can see the shame in your eyes. It's harder every time to fake perfection when you hide the person you despise inside.
When the chorus hits in this song, it's essentially me asking myself if it's okay if I can go there. Is it okay if I accept that this is a shadow of mine and give it a good look? Let's listen to the chorus. It says, "Let me be your shadow. I'll follow you into the dark. Let me be your shadow. I'll never be too far. Let me be your shadow. You are never alone. Let me be your shadow."
Let me be your shadow, I'll follow you into the dark. Let me be your shadow, I'll never be too far. Let me be your shadow, you are never alone. Let me be your shadow.
It would be easy for me to look at this part of my life when I had really not been taking care of myself and my health, and I was drinking, I was eating too much late at night, not getting sleep, not working out. And I could have looked at that part of my life when I did turn it around and consider the experiments I ran, which were to, for example, walk more, drink more water, and I stopped drinking. I don't drink alcohol. And I could look at those as experiments, but to be honest, those experiments came well after the most important experiment I ran, which comes from this song. The question in this song is, can I allow myself to be okay that I have this hidden part? Can I allow myself to accept this shadow within me? And that was the question that I had to first answer through an experiment. Let's get into the scientific method. And if you haven't already done so, I encourage you to go back to the episode that says Start Here. There's a mini series where I go into each step of the scientific method in detail. So my question here was not necessarily, how do I lose weight? That came a little later. The first question I had to address is glaringly obvious in this song. Can I accept the fact that I have a shadow? Can I sit with the shame? Can I give it a good look instead of putting it in a box and hiding it and trying to make excuses and really promising myself that I can do it when there's no way I could possibly do it because I don't know what I need to do, because I don't know where I'm at. I don't want to look at it. Can I look at that? Can I sit with that shame? So my real question was, what would it look like if I accepted that I felt shame about how I viewed my body and how I felt in my body? My hypothesis, which was step number 2, was not fun. I really thought that if I had accepted that shame and really felt that emotion, that it would become overwhelming, that I would feel terrible about myself. I wouldn't be able to stay positive. We're always told, choose joy and stay positive. And I was so afraid I would get stuck in that shame if I really accepted that it was there. That was my main hypothesis. I've encouraged you in this podcast to also think about the opposite side, the side that could be best case scenario. And I'll just be honest, I don't think there was an ounce of me that really thought about the best case scenario, but I knew what I was doing wasn't working, which led me to step number 3, which was I designed an experiment. Without knowing it, I knew something had to change. And so none of my excuses or none of my promising that next week will be better, next week I'll eat healthier, or I'm going to work out 5 times a week and then fail and fail and fail. I knew something had to change, and so I designed an experiment, which is I reached out to a trusted friend and I shared this really heavy emotion. And I should add that experiment brought along another hypothesis I had, which was I was afraid that this topic might be too heavy and we always get worried talking to a friend that if we tell them something, it might be a burden on them. And I've learned with time that that's a lot of it being in our own heads about being burdens for other people. If someone doesn't have the capacity to help you, that's really on them. That's them to share that with you, and they can do so in a vulnerable way and an open way. And you can hopefully will be able to receive it and respect that. I really have learned so many times that every time I thought I was going to be a burden for someone else, the opposite became true. And so I decided to set up an experiment. I shared this shame with a friend, and I told her how I was feeling about myself and how I remember crying. I just remember just feeling so gross, not comfortable in my body. And the data was really mind-blowing. So the data I collected, which was step 4, was that I felt a little better because I really honored that emotion. And I shared it even though I was scared to tell someone I was feeling that way. And when I analyzed the data, which is step 5, a really cool thing happened. She shared with me that she had similar thoughts and that she had similar shame, slightly different flavors, but very, very similar. And what was so interesting to me and proved my hypothesis wrong was that the shame I felt and that really heavy emotion got lighter. It was like it dissolved. It was like I wasn't carrying it not only on my own, and not that my friend was helping me carry it, it was as if it lifted completely. It was really mind-blowing. That was not what I expected at all. And so my conclusion from this was that those hidden parts of ourselves, the parts we don't want to look at, the parts we lie to ourselves about, make excuses about, and then eventually nothing changes. One of the ways that I can move through something like that is to actually feel the emotion. And by actually giving it time to exist in my body and think to myself, I really do feel that shame, and that is part of me, and it isn't a box that I like to hide, and I don't want to open it up, but I recognize it's there. It completely made it light. It made it doable. It made it easy for me to see my next right step. In a way, thinking about getting out of a situation, which is what I was doing with excuses, I learned that to get out of a situation, you really have to go through it. And by going through it, I completely dissolved that heaviness that it had. And this led me to write one of my favorite lyrical lines, and it's, "Darkness leads you to the light." And then right after that's my second favorite, which says, "You don't have to do this alone." Let's listen to this part of the song.
You don't have to hide. You judge yourself and you do it again until you realize darkness leads you to the light. You don't have to do this alone. No.
But now it's time for your life experiment. This week, I challenge you to reflect on something that feels heavy. Perhaps it's shame-oriented, something you hide from others, and something that you really don't want to look at yourself. We all have these. There's nothing wrong with it. The issue comes when it gets really heavy and it causes you to start to lie to yourself and make up excuses that really can damage you. You essentially start betraying yourself, which is what I was doing. And so the idea here is to think about something that you really just don't want to look at, and you know that you've been making some excuses about. And what we're not doing is we're not fixing the thing that we feel shame about. This isn't about, like, for me, it wasn't fixing, losing weight. This week's life experiment is about giving space and looking, shining a light on that hidden part of yourself. That's all it is. So this can be a reflective exercise where you can think about something you've been hiding, maybe making excuses internally about, and perhaps you decide to journal some on this. What's something you hide from others? How does it feel? What flavor is it? Is it shame? Is it anger driven? What's there? When does it show up the most? Why do you hide it? These are ways you can reflect on this. And what I'd like for you to do is I'd like for you to experiment with getting quiet some evening. You can, or even do it in the morning when you're drinking coffee. And I'd like for you to say hello to it. You can sit there, you can close your eyes and just think about that topic. And you can say something to it like, I see you. I see you. The other thing that helped me a lot was voicing it out loud to a friend. That's extremely transformational. So if you feel ready for that step, that's what I highly suggest, is telling someone, telling somebody else something you're going through. It's the best way to create better relationships, and also you'd be surprised what you might hear back. When you analyze this data, I want you to pay attention to how you felt before and after about that specific topic. So maybe a couple days later, you reflect on it, and I bet you'll notice that you won't have that heavy feeling maybe in your gut. And the idea here is that we are shining a light on something and telling ourselves that it's absolutely 100% okay that you're there. That doesn't mean you're going to want it there forever, but accepting that it's part of you and that it's a hidden part of you helps you see what the next right step is, so you can move in a direction that better honors yourself. You're actually dishonoring yourself by pushing it away. One of the easiest ways I think about this is this is going to be weird, but it helps me. I think about if I stubbed my toe and my toe really hurt and I'm trying to focus on a project or something, right? When you stub your toe, you're normally in the middle of something, and you can try to ignore your stubbed toe. And it's really hard because it really hurts. And much like the parts of ourselves that really hurt, what we do is we put them in a box and we shove them away from ourselves. We essentially cut them off of ourselves, even though they're there. How weird would it be if you stubbed your toe and because it hurt, you decided to cut it off? Like, that's mind-blowing. We would never do that. Yet, we cut off parts of ourselves and shove them away and act like they aren't there all the time. Internally, we do this. Mentally, emotionally, we do this all the time. We cut off our toes. We treat our physical ailments so differently than our emotional ailments, if you'd like to call them. Yet, they're both still very painful. So maybe that can help you as you're thinking about something that you're cutting off or pushing into a box. You can't really ignore your stubbed toe. You got to ice it or something. And that's what we're doing for those hidden parts of ourselves that when we open up those boxes, they can be really painful. But like my song Shadow, it says, darkness leads you to the light. Getting unstuck is shining a light on that emotion and saying, I see you. I know that you're there. It's such a beautiful gift you can give yourself. And in addition, you might be inspiring your friend when you share this with them. Not to mention the amount of growth your relationship can see when you do that. If you enjoyed this episode, it would mean the world to me if you shared this with a friend, maybe the friend you're going to tell your hidden part to. Share this with them. Also, I would love if you shared your results of your life experiment with me, or something that came up from one of my podcasts that you listened to and were like, I have to let her know. Email me at kelsey@kelseymiles.com. You can also sign up for email and our community at kelseymiles.com/thelab, THELAB. And remember, much like in my song Shadow, you don't have to do this alone. Thank you so much for joining me on another episode of Authenticity Lab. I'll be back next week with a new story to help inspire you to live boldly, lead a life of curiosity, so you can keep being your most amazing, authentic self.
Yeah, that house will always call you.